They arrested a 12-year-old girl at school, then laughed when she said her dad was in special forces. Seconds later, they weren't laughing anymore. You ever have one of those days where everything feels normal, right up until it isn't? That's how it started for Amara Fields. A Tuesday morning in Toledo, Ohio, just after spring break. The kind of day where the grass is still wet when you walk to school and your backpack feels heavier than usual, not because of the books, but because your mind's somewhere else. Amara was 12, bright, funny, always drawing little comics in the margins of her notebook. She had these thick glasses that always slipped down her nose and a confidence that wasn't loud, but steady. Her dad said she walked like she had somewhere important to be, even when she didn't. She went to Monroe Ridge Middle School, just off Bancroft Street. Nothing fancy. Brick building, crowded hallways, and a metal detector that clicked every time someone walked through with too many zippers. That morning, Amara had brought something from home. Something small. Something she wasn't supposed to bring. But in her mind, it wasn't wrong. It was something special. During lunch, while her classmates crowded the tables and opened their soggy sandwiches and cold cheese sticks, Amara unzipped the side pocket of her backpack. She leaned in close to her friends, Tasha and Brandon, and whispered like she had a secret. "Y'all want to see something crazy?" Brandon raised an eyebrow. "What?" Amara carefully unwrapped a small black utility knife. Nothing fancy. Just a fold-out blade with a scratched-up handle, the kind of tool someone in the military might use to cut rope or boxes. It didn't even lock into place properly anymore. She held it in her palm like it was made of gold. "My dad gave it to me, said it was from his pack. From Afghanistan," she said, eyes wide. Tasha gasped. "Girl, you're gonna get in trouble." Amara shook her head. "It's fine. He said I could carry it in my bag. For emergencies. He's special forces. This is real stuff." Brandon grinned. "That's sick. Your dad really in the Army?" "He's more than Army," Amara said, puffing up just a little. "He's the reason they sleep at night." She laughed, joking, and slid the knife back into her bag like it was no big deal. But 2 tables over, a teacher had been watching. Ms. Yarrow, 6th period science. The kind of teacher who didn't miss much, but didn't really ask questions either. She saw the knife, saw the whispering, saw the way Amara slid it away, and that was enough. She stood up, walked straight out of the lunchroom, and pulled out her phone. 5 minutes later, the principal's voice crackled through the overhead speaker. "Amara Fields, please report to the front office. Amara Fields." But Amara never made it there herself, because they came to her. 2 police officers, one tall and stiff like a flagpole, the other with a hand already near his belt, stepped right into the lunchroom. Everyone went silent. Even the janitor froze mid-sweep. The taller one scanned the room. "Amara Fields?" She blinked, unsure if she should stand or hide. "Let's go," the shorter one said, motioning. She stood up slow, confused. "Why?" "We'll talk about it outside," the tall one replied. Her friends stared at her, mouths open. As she walked between the tables, eyes locked on her from every direction, someone whispered, "Is she in trouble?" And then the shorter cop took her arm, not hard, not yanking, but firm, like she didn't have a choice. But what happened next changed everything. The hallway was dead quiet, the kind of quiet where you notice every squeak in your sneakers, every flicker in the lights overhead. Amara walked between the 2 officers, her palms sweating. She glanced over her shoulder, but no one was behind her now, just her and them. The taller officer, Kevin Mallory, kept his eyes straight ahead. The other one, Officer Brent Dawson, looked younger, more unsure. He kept glancing down at her, but never said much. "What did I do?" Amara asked, her voice shaking just a little. "You can talk to the principal," Mallory answered, flat like he'd said that line 1,000 times. "But—" she started, then stopped. She didn't want to make things worse. When they got to the main office, the receptionist looked up like she'd seen a ghost. "Wait, you're—" "We've got it handled," Mallory interrupted, flashing a badge like it was a magic shield. Principal Mr. Gentry was already in the front hallway, arms crossed. Bald, always wore those old brown loafers and a wrinkled tie. He looked stressed, not confused, not curious, just like he was ready for this to be over. "I called them," he told Amara, like that made it okay. "We got a report of a student with a weapon. You understand how serious that is?" But it's not a weapon. It's a... Amara stopped herself. Her voice cracked. It's a tool. It's just a little knife my dad gave me. He said he's in the special forces. It's not for hurting people. He said it's safe. Mallory scoffed. Right. And I'm a Navy SEAL. Amara blinked, stunned by the sarcasm. She's got a smart mouth, Mallory added, looking over at Dawson. Let's get her to the car. You didn't even call my dad, Amara snapped, now panicking. You didn't ask anybody. My dad's name is Darius Fields. He's stationed at Camp Grayling. He's real. Gentry looked uneasy for the first time. Maybe we should... But Mallory cut in. We'll sort it out downtown. Dawson shifted on his feet. She's 12, man. Mallory shot him a look. And bringing blades to school. This ain't about age. They walked her through the front doors, past the rows of waiting parents, past a kid coughing into his backpack, past the school mascot statue with its chipped paint and lopsided grin. That's when someone pulled out their phone. It was a student, maybe 7th or 8th grade, standing behind the bushes near the bike rack, recording everything. They caught the part where Amara pleaded, My dad's in special forces. You're going to be sorry when he gets here. And Mallory, still gripping her arm, chuckled without looking at her. Sure he is, and I'm the president. But that video? It wasn't going away. By the time they got to the police cruiser, Amara's hands were shaking. Dawson opened the back door, hesitating. You sure we need cuffs? Mallory didn't hesitate. Protocol. He pulled them out like they were nothing. Cold, silver, loud. Amara backed up a step. Please don't. Please. I didn't do anything wrong. Keep your hands in front, Mallory said flatly. Don't make this harder. And in front of the school, with teachers watching from the windows and parents stepping out of their cars to stare, he cuffed a 12-year-old girl who hadn't raised her voice, hadn't tried to run, hadn't even understood what she was being accused of. The cuffs clicked, too big for her wrists. They slid down a little and pinched her skin. She bit her lips so hard it hurt, trying not to cry. But the tears came anyway. Mallory opened the back door. In. She climbed in without a word. Dawson shut the door gently behind her. Too late for kindness now. The cruiser pulled away from the curb, and that's when it happened. Someone posted the video. The student who filmed it? They uploaded it straight to TikTok before the cop car had even turned onto Dorr Street. The caption read, 12-yo black girl arrested for showing knife from her dad in the military. Cop says, I'm the president, after mocking her. It took 5 minutes to hit 10,000 views, 15 minutes to hit 40,000. By the time they reached the station, it was everywhere. In the back seat, Amara sat in silence. She watched the trees blur by, lips trembling, eyes burning. They think I'm a threat, she whispered to herself. Dawson glanced back once through the rearview mirror but said nothing. At the station, they didn't take her straight to a cell. She was too young for that. They put her in a small interview room with flickering fluorescent lights and chairs that scraped too loud against the floor. Mallory leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You want to talk now, or are you waiting for your imaginary dad? Amara blinked. He's not imaginary. He rolled his eyes. Right. Special Forces. Let me guess. He's in the CIA too? Amara stared at the table. Her wrists were red. Mallory paced slowly. I've been doing this job 16 years. You don't scare me. You think being tough gets you out of this? She didn't respond. Dawson hovered near the door, uncomfortable now. She's just a kid, man. Mallory turned to him. And that's how it starts. One day it's a knife, next day it's a gun. Dawson looked away. Then Amara said something barely above a whisper. You're going to be real quiet when he walks in here, I promise. And the room fell silent. Because she didn't say it like a threat. She said it like a fact. But back in the lobby, someone had just walked through the doors. The desk officer barely looked up at first. Another guy in uniform. No big deal. But then he saw the insignia on the chest. The deep green fatigues, the rows of ribbons, the shoulder patch. The calm way the man moved. Like every inch of the building already belonged to him. Master Sergeant Darius Fields didn't need to raise his voice. I'm here for my daughter, Amara Fields, brought in from Monroe Ridge Middle. The officer blinked. Hold on, sir. I'm not here to wait, Darius said, still calm. I'm here to get answers, and to take my child home. The front lobby turned quiet. Officers at nearby desks stopped typing. Someone paused mid-coffee sip. You could feel the shift, like the atmosphere had changed just enough for everyone to notice. One officer stood up. She's in interview room 2. Let me go get Sergeant Mallory. Darius didn't flinch. You do that. Down the hall, Mallory's radio crackled. Mallory, you got someone up front. Says he's her dad. Mallory smirked. What? Her imaginary soldier finally showed up? Dawson looked up. You sure you want to go there, man? Mallory waved him off and left the room. Amara sat alone now, her hands still cuffed in front of her, sniffling quietly. The door swung open hard. Darius stepped in. Mallory froze in the doorway behind him, mouth slightly open. Amara looked up. Daddy! Darius's eyes locked on hers first, then the cuffs. He didn't yell, didn't demand. He turned slowly to Mallory. She's 12. You put cuffs on a 12-year-old? Mallory straightened. Sir, with respect, you thought she was lying. I followed procedure. No, you followed your assumptions, Darius said. His voice stayed level. You thought a black girl talking about special forces had to be making it up. You heard knife and stopped listening. Mallory shifted, defensive. We had a report, a weapon. That wasn't a weapon. That was a tool from my old pack. She's been scared lately walking home, so I gave it to her. Not to fight, to feel safe. Mallory opened his mouth again, but Darius held up a hand. Stop talking. You're only making it worse. He stepped toward his daughter, crouched. You okay, baby? She nodded, finally letting herself cry. Darius gently took her cuffed hands. Who did this to you? She pointed at Mallory without hesitation. Darius stood back up. You owe her an apology. Mallory scoffed. I was doing my job. No, you were feeding your pride, Darius said, staring him down. Now you're going to watch a real soldier walk his daughter out of here, and then you're going to pray that video doesn't end your job. But outside that interview room, the real fallout had already begun. Back at the front desk, phones were ringing non-stop. Someone had tagged the mayor in the video. Someone else had already sent it to a local journalist. And now, more calls were flooding in. Parents, veterans, strangers, activists, all asking the same question. Why was a little girl cuffed for telling the truth? Inside the station, Darius didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He stood in front of Mallory, posture straight, voice calm, but cut sharp. You mocked her, laughed at her, publicly humiliated her. Did you even stop to consider for 1 second what kind of damage you were doing? Mallory's expression cracked just a little. His smirk was gone. His eyes darted to the camera in the corner of the room. Dawson stepped forward, finally finding his voice. Sir, I told him we should slow down. She wasn't acting out. She was scared. She had a reason to be, Darius replied, not taking his eyes off Mallory. He looked down at Amara's wrists. Where's the key? Mallory hesitated, then reached into his belt and tossed it onto the table. Darius caught it, unlocked the cuffs, and rubbed Amara's wrists gently. You good to walk? She nodded. Yeah. He looked back at Mallory one last time. You know what the real threat is in this country. Grown men who carry power without the patience to understand it. Mallory clenched his jaw but said nothing. Darius took Amara by the hand and walked her out of the room. Through the hallway, past the stairs, past the officers who suddenly found interesting things to look at on their desks, past the front desk clerk, who stood up but didn't speak. In the parking lot, reporters were already gathering. Bright lights, boom mics, shouting. Master Sergeant Fields, do you believe this was racial profiling? Amara, how do you feel? Will you press charges? Darius stopped just outside the cruiser, bent down beside Amara, and looked her in the eyes. You don't owe them anything right now. You want to leave? We'll leave. If you want them to hear you, I'll be right beside you. She looked around, the crowd, the flashing phones, the flashing lights. Then she turned and faced the cameras. I told the truth, she said. They didn't believe me because I'm a kid, because I'm black, because they thought my dad couldn't be who I said he was. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. But he is. And you don't get to treat people like they're lying just because you don't expect much from them. One of the reporters blinked, stunned. Another lowered their mic. Darius put his hand on her shoulder and nodded, proud. They walked to their car and drove off quietly, without another word. But back inside that station, something had already changed. By that evening, the video had crossed 1 million views. Veterans were reposting it with captions like, "That's not how you treat a soldier's child." Teachers were chiming in. "We're trained to de-escalate, not to panic." And parents? They were furious. The school board called an emergency meeting. The principal, Mr. Gentry, didn't show up. Neither did Ms. Yarrow, the teacher who'd made the call. But the crowd showed up, in the hundreds. Fold-out chairs filled, people standing along the walls. Some held signs, "Protect kids, not egos. Believe black children." Darius Fields didn't speak that night. He sat with Amara in the front row, one arm around her shoulders. Let others carry the message. A local mom stepped up to the mic. If Amara had been blonde and quiet, she said, they would have called her parents, not the police. A retired cop spoke too. This was poor judgment, plain and simple. That officer escalated because he could. That's not training, that's ego. Even Officer Dawson showed up, in plain clothes, nervous, but there. He walked up to the mic, cleared his throat, and said, "I didn't stop it. That's on me. I should have said more. I'm sorry to Amara, to her father, and to every kid who watches what happened and thinks staying quiet is the only way to stay safe." It was the first time Mallory's name came up directly. The next day, it hit the news. Sergeant Kevin Mallory was placed on unpaid administrative leave pending an internal investigation. No press conference, no apology, just a cold little line in the local paper. But the real story wasn't about him anymore. The real story was Amara. Kids at school welcomed her back like a celebrity. Even the ones who never spoke to her before suddenly wanted to sit at her lunch table. But Amara didn't care about the attention. What mattered to her was simple. She told the truth. Her truth. And eventually, someone listened. At home, Darius hung her drawing on the fridge, a cartoon she'd made of the whole day. It showed her standing between two cops, hands in cuffs, while her dad stood behind her like a superhero, arms crossed, cape fluttering, and a speech bubble that said, "My dad's real, and he's coming." Darius chuckled when he saw it. "You know what I learned?" she said, handing him a juice box. "What?" "I don't want to be quiet when I know I'm right, even if nobody believes me." He nodded, taking the juice. "You think that's bad?" she added. "Wait till I run for president." They both laughed, but this wasn't just about jokes and lessons. It was about respect, about listening, about the damage done when adults act out of fear instead of facts, when people with power act first and ask questions later. Don't let this kind of thing slide. If you see someone being silenced, doubted, or dismissed just because of who they are, say something. Kids are watching. So are the people who think they'll never be held accountable. Let's prove them wrong.